Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Jayo, Jayo, Gaura Chande, Arati Goshoba, Janavi Tatavane, Jagamanaroba. Janavita Dabane Jagamanaloba Dekinanizai Chan Vamegadadara Dekinanizai Jam Mamegadadara Nikate Advaita Srini Vasachatradara Nikate Advaita Srini Vasachatradara Vosiyache Gauracham Ratna Simhasana Vosiyache Gauracham Ratna Simhasana Arati Kaurena Brahma Adi Devagane Adi Kaurena Brahma Adi Devagane Narahari Adi Kori Tamaradulaya Hari Hari Kori Tamaradulaya Sanjaya Mukunda Basho Goshadigaya Sanka Bhaje Ganta Bhaje Bhaje Karadara bhaje Paramarasala Samkabade Kantabade Madur 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 Bhaja Sankabade Kantabade Madur 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 Bhaja Sankabade Gantabade Madur 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 Bhaja Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Bahu Koti Chandrajini Vadana Udvala Galadeshe Vanamara Kore Jalamala Shiva Sukha Narada Brahma Gada Gada Bhaktivedanta dekhe Gaura Sampada Jaya Jaya Gaura Chande Arati Ko Shobha Jana Vita Tavane Jagamana Loba Gaurange Ratik Shobha Jagajanamana Loba Gaurangeya Ratik Shobha Jagajanamana Loba Gaurangeya Ratik Shobha Raga Janamana Loba Nitya Gaura Haribol 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 Nitya Gaura Haribol Nitya Gaura Haribol 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 Nitya Gaura Haribol Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Chaitanya Nityananda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Ayo Radha Gokulananda, Radha Gokulananda, Radha Gokulananda, Sri Radha. Jayo Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman, Jayo Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman. Tayo Gauranitai, 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 Tayo Gauranitai. Tayo Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtatarshad Shishimad, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtatarshad, His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki. Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki. Vrindavan Dham Ki, Mayapur Dham Ki, Jagannath Kshetra Dham Ki, Ganga Mai Ki, Yamuna Mai Ki, Tulsi Maharani Ki, Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Shri Prabhupada.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Praladayine. Praladayine. Hiranyakashipurvakshaha. Shilatankanakalaye. Ito nirsimho parato nirsimho. Yato yato yamitato nirsimho. Pahe nirsimho hidaye nirsimho. Narasimhamadem sharanam prapade. Tavakara kamalavare nakamadbhuta shringam. Dalita Hiranyakashipur Tanu Bringam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jayo Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Nrsimhadev 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 Jaya Pralamara Jaya Pralamara Jaya Pralamara Shila Pralamara Jaya Pralamara Jaya Pralamara Jaya Pralamara Jaya Pralamara
Shri Nrsimhadev Bhagavan ki, Prahlad Maharaj ki.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Shira Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Shira Prabhupada. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parifrajikacharya Asto Tadasata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Founder Acharya Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parifrajikacharya Asto Tadasata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Shri Bhaktivedanta Sarasvati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakund Radha Kundgiri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Mayapur Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Gangamaya ki jai. Jamunamaya ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Srimati Tulsi Maharani ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Bhagavad-Gita ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So repeat line after line, please. Jamma karma chame divyam. Jamma karma chame divyam. Evam yo veti tatvata. Evam yo veti tatvata. Tyakva deham punarjamma. Tyakva deham punarjamma. Naiti mam eti savarjana. Naiti mam eti savarjana. Jamma karma chame divyam. Evam yo veti tatvata. Tyaktva deham punarjamma. Naiti mam eti savarjana. Prabhus, please. Jamma karma chame divyam. Evam yo veti tatvata. Tyaktva deham punarjamma. Naiti mam eti savarjana. Jamma karma chame divyam. Evam yo veti tatvata. Tyakva deham punarjamma. Naiti mam eti so Arjuna. Word for word. Janma, birth. Karma, work. Cha, also. Me, of mine. Divyam, transcendental. Evam, like this. Ya, anyone who. Veti, knows. Tatvata, in reality. Tyaktva, leaving aside. Deham, this body. Puna, again. Jamma, birth. Na, never. Eti, does attain. Mam, unto me. Eti, does attain. Sa, he. Arjuna, O Arjuna. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Purport. The Lord's descent from his transcendental abode is already explained in the 6th verse. One who can understand the truth of the appearance of the personality of Godhead is already liberated from material bondage, and therefore he returns to the kingdom of God immediately after quitting this present material body. Such liberation of the living entity from material bondage is not at all easy. The impersonalists and the yogis attain liberation only after much trouble and many, many births. Even then, the liberation they achieve, merging into the impersonal Brahmajyoti of the Lord, is only partial, and there is the risk of returning to this material world. But the devotee, simply by understanding the transcendental nature of the body and activities of the Lord, attains the abode of the Lord after ending this body, and does not run the risk of returning to this material world. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that the Lord has many, many forms and incarnations. Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam. Although there are many transcendental forms of the Lord, they are still one and the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. One has to understand this fact with conviction, although it is incomprehensible to mundane scholars and empiric philosophers, as stated in the Vedas. Eko Devo Nicha Lina Nurakto, Bhakta Vyapi Hirdi Antaratma. The one Supreme Personality of Godhead is eternally engaged in many, many transcendental forms in relationships with his unalloyed devotees. This Vedic version is confirmed in this verse of the Gita personally by the Lord. He who accepts this truth on the strength of the authority of the Vedas and of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who does not waste time in philosophical speculations, attains the highest perfectional stage of liberation. Simply by accepting this truth on faith, one can, without a doubt, attain liberation. The Vedic version, Tattvam Asi, is actually applied in this case. Anyone who understands Lord Krishna to be the Supreme, or who says unto the Lord, "You are the same Supreme Brahman, the personality of Godhead," is certainly liberated instantly, and consequently, his entrance into the transcendental association of the Lord is guaranteed. In other words, such a faithful devotee of the Lord attains perfection, and this is confirmed by the following Vedic assertion. Tam eva vidivati mrityamati, nanya panta vidyate yanaya. One can attain the perfect stage of liberation from birth and death simply by knowing the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and there is no other way to achieve this perfection. That there is no alternative means that anyone who does not understand Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is surely in the mode of ignorance, and consequently he will not attain salvation simply, so to speak, by licking the outer surface of the bottle of honey, or by interpreting the Bhagavad-Gita according to mundane scholarship. Such empiric philosophers may assume very important roles in the material world, but they are not necessarily eligible for liberation. Such puffed-up mundane scholars have to wait for the causeless mercy of the devotee of the Lord. One should therefore cultivate Krishna consciousness with faith and knowledge, and in this way attain perfection. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishdaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskacha Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So we are reading from the Bhagavad-Gita, text 4.9, talking about the transcendental nature of the appearance and activities of the Lord. This verse is very important, and I'll give a relation in my life, actually, just to start off with. When I was reading scriptures, I was very enthusiastic and motivated to truly understand Krishna, God, and really understand why does he come to this material world? Why does he appear? Why does he engage in leelas and pastimes? And why does he have such intimate relationships with jivas, with souls? And so through my, I guess you could say, pride, now looking in reflection, I studied very heavily, very deeply, as much as I could, all the time. I was fully immersed in all these scriptures. And although I was gaining a lot of knowledge about who Krishna is, his different energies, how he manifest the material world, the spiritual worlds, everything to do with Gyan, still I felt that something was missing. I was missing the crucial points of Krishna consciousness. And this verse really helps to summarize why that was, basically. It says, especially in the Purport by Srila Prabhupada, that such empiric philosophers may assume very important roles in the material world, but they are not necessarily eligible for liberation. Such puffed-up mundane scholars have to wait for the causeless mercy of the devotee of the Lord. Through our own efforts and ambitions to understand Krishna, it all proves incompatible if we do not have bhakti to accompany it, if we do not have devotion to the Lord to understand the Lord. The Lord says in the Bhagavad-Gita, Bhakti mam abhijananti. Only through devotion can we understand Lord Krishna and not otherwise. So through my attempts to understand Krishna without devotion, I was simply speculating. I was in the mental platform. Who is Krishna? Maybe he's like this, maybe he's like that, and so on, so on. I was not getting anywhere. And so the crucial element that I was missing in my endeavors to understand Krishna was mercy. I never understood what mercy is, the nature of mercy, how it works, how we can get it, how it helps me in my spiritual life. But recently I've been looking into the science of mercy, and this verse really helps to teach us that is required to understand. Essentially, this verse acts as a formula how to go back to Godhead, as it states in the shloka itself, that upon leaving the body, one does not have to take birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode. And so, who knows Krishna? Who knows the transcendental nature and activities of the Supreme Lord? When we think about it, we can only really say pure devotees. Pure devotees are those who have had their heart cleansed, their impurities dissipated, and in that pure consciousness, they can understand Krishna as much as possible as one can in this human form of life. Even then it's limited, but still they can understand quite a bit about the Supreme Lord, and therefore they can develop this relationship with him, a very intimate relationship. And it says here in the verse, tattvata, in reality, to understand him, in tattva. So we must understand Krishna in truth. And that truth is something that we do not endeavor to attain like I was trying to through my ascending method of trying to understand Krishna. It comes through mercy. It comes through the descending line. This truth is something that is imparted to us. There is that verse, Tadvidi panipatena, pariprasnena sevaya, upadekshanti te gyanam karenas tadvatarshana. That the self-realized souls impart knowledge unto you, and therefore one can understand the truth because they've seen the truth. So this is an interesting word, imparts. You know, it's not like is something that one is given, this knowledge. And so when Krishna says here that one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities, we must accept the fact that this is something that's given to us. We can't understand the nature of Krishna, his appearance and activities based on our own speculation, because that's all it is. It's just what ifs, maybe, perhaps. It's all on the mental platform. And this is completely transcendental spiritual knowledge. It's completely on the basis of the soul. And therefore, we won't come close. The more that we speculate mentally about Krishna, the further away we're getting away from him, actually, because the mind's material, and therefore, anything that it concocts is material. There's nothing spiritual about the mind. So it's very important that we understand how we can understand Krishna. And how we understand Krishna is by becoming pure. Purification is necessary to understand Krishna. There's no other way, there's no endeavor that one can partake other than the purification of Bhakti Yoga that can enable one to understand the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Like that. So, on this subject of how do we know Krishna, like I said, many people, such as myself, as I stated in the beginning, we try to understand Krishna based on our merit, our intelligence, our scholarship, our material qualifications, so many things. And the Supreme Lord says in the Bhagavad-Gita, Avajananti Mamuda, that they are rascals who try to do this. They are trying to understand me based on their own capabilities, their own endeavors, their own knowledge, and it's not possible. The conditioned soul has 4 primary defects. They are prone to illusion, they commit mistakes, they have a propensity to cheat others, and their senses are imperfect. All of this together constitutes perfectly why we cannot understand the Supreme Lord based on our own endeavor, our own capabilities. Because being in this human form of life means that we have many anarthas, unwanted things, which disallow us from being able to understand the truth. And therefore, purification is absolutely required. Otherwise, it's just not possible to understand the Supreme Lords. And Srila Prabhupada says in the purports, very interestingly, talking about these people who try to understand Krishna through their scholarship, that it's like they are licking the outer surface of the bottle of honey. So there's so much nectar in this Bhagavad-Gita, in every shloka, in every line, in every word. But if we do not get the guidance and the mercy to understand, then we're simply, as Srila Prabhupada says, just licking the outside. There's a whole bottle of honey, nectar inside, and we're unable to actually taste it and enter and be able to relish the divine teachings of the Bhagavad-Gita from Sri Krishna. Like that. And so, as it states again in the purports, and even in the translation, that if one does not understand the nature of the activities and appearance of the Supreme Lord, then one must take birth again. One must take birth again, like that. So it's very important that we understand how we can understand Krishna. The very nature of this material world is that we must suffer from birth, disease, old age, and death. These things affect everyone in the material world, the lower regions, the upper regions. And so therefore, anyone in this universe cannot escape this inevitability. And so therefore, it's wise for someone to think, how can I stop this? How can I prevent these problems of life coming and repeating over and over again as we take birth again and again and again? And so this qualification to understand Krishna, as I've said, is not something that we can just attain on our own endeavors. It must be given. Bhakti is based on mercy, and that mercy flows to us. The more that we try to articulate on Krishna and his nature and his pastimes, as I've said, the further we are getting away, because this parampara system is descending. As it says, Evam parampara praptam, imam rajasayor vidu, sakalenaha mahata, yogo nashta parantapa. This disciplining succession passes down this knowledge from generation to generation, all the way back to Krishna. And therefore it is pure. It does not become contaminated, as it remains as it is all throughout the generations. It is not being affected by these imperfect senses of ours, which just misconstrue the truth and try to speculate on the truth based on our own capabilities. And so trying to understand Krishna without bhakti, it's kind of like trying to read without eyes. It's practically impossible. As long as we're on the mental platform, we're still in material consciousness, we're still being affected by the modes of material nature, and therefore transcendental knowledge cannot come to us. It's because if we're being affected by Rajagun, Tamagun, then we're still in the material platform. And Krishna cannot come to us in that way. He cannot enter our hearts and we cannot understand him. Just like that. And so there's this verse as well in the Bhagavad-Gita, Kashin Mam Veti Tatvata, where it says, out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection. And of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So it's very difficult, as Srila Prabhupada is again stated in the purport, to understand Krishna. And so spiritual life is not easy. In fact, it's quite difficult because we're trying to understand something or someone who is completely spiritual, completely beyond our sense perception. And therefore he is called Adoksaja. Adoksaja means he who is beyond sense perception. And so now it can make a clearer picture as to why when we try to endeavor with our imperfect senses to understand Krishna, it's not possible. It's simply not possible because Krishna as his nature is so hard to understand. And when we try to understand the vast ocean of truth in our limited cups of understanding, it's just the very thought of it is quite amusing. And therefore humility is very much required to accept the fact that the Supreme Lord is so inconceivably magnanimous that we must accept that he is far greater than my even conception. That is how great Sri Krishna is. And so, what does that mean for us? How can we understand the Supreme Lord? As I've stated briefly, it depends on the mercy. And that mercy comes from the pure devotees of the Lord. Mercy is transmitted from one to another. There is no direct recipient of mercy from Lord Sri Krishna. It comes through his devotees. Therefore, we should be very much keen and eager to receive the Sangha or association of those devotees who are dear to Lord Krishna. For they can, Tadvidi Pranipatena, reveal to us the truth by imparting it unto us. And also in that verse it says how we should approach the spiritual master, how we can surrender like that, but I won't go into that right now. But we should know for sure that only by taking shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna can we understand the nature of Krishna. Sarva dhammam prityaja mamekam saranam vraja aham tvam sabhapabhebhyo mokshayashyami masucha. In fact, this verse is something that we must imbibe to understand the Gita itself. We must inquire in a surrendering mood. They say that true wisdom is for one who accepts that he knows nothing. That means one is wise. Because only when we're on a platform of knowing nothing can we accept that which is truth. Otherwise, our preconceived notions, understandings, and conceptions will always come in the way of our trying to understand the Lord. And it's always going to be a problem like that. And as Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, that such puffed up mundane scholars have to wait for the causeless mercy of the devotees of the Lord. It's interesting, this word wait. So patience, again, something very much required as well. And the causeless mercy. The devotees of the Lord are so merciful and so kind to us. They devote their whole lives to such a movement just purely to help others, to give their life to helping others, to help them to realize who they are, who Krishna is, what is this material world, what is my relationship with Krishna, and therefore attain true happiness, true bliss, for they are becoming again reinstated in their original constitutional position. And so to surrender, to understand Krishna, his nature, his activities, why he appears, why he partakes in pastimes, we must approach a guru. We have to surrender to a spiritual master because they have seen the truth. They know what is right, what is wrong, who is Krishna, what is Maya, and decipher what is best for us on this path of understanding Krishna. Otherwise, as I've stated, we will remain speculating. We will always try to understand Krishna through our own endeavors, through our own conceptions, and it'll always be faulty. It'll always have fault in it because we have imperfect senses. I'm repeating this just to get this into the mind, because I made that mistake of thinking that I could understand Krishna based on my own endeavors. Read loads of sastra, chant more, like that, And while these things definitely do help, they run the risk of, especially at least in reading lots of knowledge, in developing pride. And that pride is a great hindrance on the spiritual path. The moment we have pride in our learning ability is the moment that we're very prone to downfall and our spiritual progress is very much halted. And so sadhu sangha is what I'm trying to really emphasize here as the key to understanding Krishna. Through that sadhu sangha, we can realize the nature of who we are and our indifference to this material world, which is Brahman realization. Then we can understand or proceed to understand who Krishna is, and that is obviously brings eternality, bliss and knowledge, Satchiyananda, where there is nothing like that in this material world. And so because Krishna's pastimes, his activities, his name, his form, everything about him is full of Satchiyananda, and because this material world is the opposite, it is temporary, it is miserable, it is ignorant, full of ignorance, especially with the human body and the subtle body, it makes understanding the nature of the activities of the Lord very difficult or practically impossible. And so there's a nice quote from Padma Purana that says, Ata Shri Krishna namadi na bhave grayam indraye sevam mukhe hi jivado svayam eva sfuratyada. No one can understand Krishna as he is by the blunt material senses, but he reveals himself to the devotees, being pleased with them for their transcendental loving service unto him. And so, by engaging in transcendental loving service, we can understand Krishna. Through becoming a devotee, we can understand Krishna. There is no other way. Srila Prabhupada heavily emphasizes this in the purport, and Sri Krishna himself has said in the Bhagavad-Gita that we must approach a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and then that allows us to get the mercy, that allows us to understand who Krishna is. We cannot ascend in our endeavors to understand Krishna. It's not possible. Otherwise, we'll just be speculating, and it will never come to any conclusion. And as I've said, Krishna just calls them mudhas. They are fools, they are rascals, because they think based on their own intellect, their own conceptions, they can understand who I am. Like that. So, in order to understand Krishna, his activities, why he appears here, we must get the mercy. And so chanting, reading sastras, and especially sadhu sangha is how we attract that mercy. Every day we should try to make endeavors to be as sincere as possible in our devotional service, because that attracts mercy. And that mercy is very important for us in our spiritual life. That mercy can attract sadhus into our life, and those sadhus, those pure devotees, are the ones who will reveal this knowledge to us. They are the ones who will impart that knowledge into us. And that's what we really require. We don't want to make the mistake of thinking that we have the ability to understand someone who is adoksaja, someone who's inconceivable. Otherwise, we're just taking the long route, put simply. We must accept the fact that we are in such a predicament that we are so faulty in our understanding that we must approach someone who has that pure knowledge and who can impart unto us so we can understand Krishna. And why do we want to understand Krishna? What is so amazing about Krishna? There's many things to say which I don't have time to say in this class. But in terms of suffering, we are able to avoid and completely negate any possible chance of taking birth again. And we understand from our own lives, at least, how we suffer through adhyatmika, adhibodhika, adhidevika, the miseries of the body and the mind, the miseries of supernatural occurrences, the miseries from other living entities. If we are not suffering from birth, death, old age, and disease, we are suffering from one of these things. The material world is such a place that always these things will be going on. And so that's another step, an important thing to realize for someone who wants to take spiritual life seriously, the nature of this material world. Krishna says, Dukalayam ashashvitam. This material world is a place which is temporary and full of misery. And we see that in today's world with the coronavirus. Many people, when we look on the news, are suffering. People we know. Everywhere in the world, this is going on. And Krishna is giving us the formula how to get out of these problems, how to disentangle ourselves from this material world and understand who we really are, which is eternal servants of the Lord. Jivara Svurupahaya Krishnara Nichedas. When we forget this thing, we engross ourselves with the material body and attach and identify ourselves with the material body, which is the very source of our suffering. When we're not serving Krishna, when we're not engaging in Bhakti Yoga, devotional service, we are serving our senses. We become Godas, servant of the senses. And Krishna says, Yehi samsparsha jaboka dukkha yonaya evate. That these material senses are what cause our misery. When we indulge in sense gratification, we have a little bit of pleasure, but then just misery, like that. Whether it's through any of the senses, including the mind as well. But Krishna is so kind and merciful that he is giving us the formula here, how to detach from this world and how to go back to his abodes, his eternal abodes, which is free from any problems, any birth, death, old age, disease, anything, any suffering. It is Vaikuntha, it is free from anxiety, it is pure, blissful, eternal, full of knowledge. That is what the soul is hankering for always, that bliss and that happiness. But through the material conception of life, it is perverted and we seek it through our senses. And that is the very cause of our suffering. So we should inquire into sadhus, we should submissively approach them and inquire deeply about who am I? Who is Krishna? What is this material world? How do I develop my relationship with Krishna? And he will impart that knowledge unto you, which helps you to realize these things and undertake the process of sadhana bhakti. We must engage in chanting the holy names of the Lord to purify our hearts so we can understand Krishna, so we can one day also take initiation, take shelter of a spiritual master who can impart that knowledge unto us. Thereby we can understand Krishna, we can understand his nature, his appearance, his activities, and thereby never have to take birth again in this miserable world. And so I think I'm nearly out of time already. I can't believe how quickly that went. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Any reflections, any criticisms, corrections? Anything anyone would like to share? Yes, Prabhu? Thank you so much. That's very kind of you. Jai. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai.
thought you had knowledge and you so spoke from the heart. It was amazing. Yeah. Should I give it first?